Chicago, a city of broad shoulders and big dreams. But, beneath the gleaming surface, a darkness lurks, a history etched in blood and concrete. This is the story of Chicago's gangs. It's a tale of ambition, betrayal, and the enduring struggle for power. From the roaring 20s to the concrete jungles of today, the struggle for control has stained the city's soul. It's a story of poverty and desperation where survival often means choosing sides, and once you choose, there's no turning back. The shadows of the past still linger, a reminder of the battles fought and the blood spilled. But even in the darkest corners, hope flickers. A hope that one day, the city's streets will be safe again. The Jazz Age, a time of prosperity and prohibition. And in Chicago, Al Capone reigned supreme. A ruthless businessman, he built an empire on illegal booze, gambling, and vice. Capone's word was law. His enforcers, armed to the teeth, kept the city in line through fear and intimidation. Speakeasies flourished, hidden in plain sight. Behind the jazz and laughter, a dark undercurrent flowed, the stench of corruption and violence. The intoxicating allure of wealth and power drew many young men into Capone's web. They craved the respect, the money, the sense of belonging. But loyalty came at a price, paid in blood and loyalty. Capone's reign was a reign of terror, a stark reminder that power unchecked corrupts absolutely. His story is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can take root when lawlessness prevails. The fall of Capone in 1931 left a void, a power vacuum waiting to be filled. The city, fractured along racial and economic lines, became fertile ground for new forms of organized crime. The Great Migration brought waves of African Americans from the South, seeking opportunity in the industrial North. But instead of opportunity, they found discrimination, poverty, and segregation. Confined to overcrowded neighborhoods, they faced systemic racism that limited their choices and fueled resentment. Meanwhile, the old ethnic gangs, remnants of Capone's era, saw an opportunity to reclaim their lost power. The city became a tinderbox, the tension palpable in the air. And as the embers of discontent smoldered, a new breed of gangster was about to rise from the ashes. In the neglected neighborhoods, where opportunity seemed scarce, young people sought refuge in the streets. They formed their own tribes, their own codes of conduct, their own sense of belonging. These nascent gangs offered protection from the harsh realities of life in the ghetto. They provided a sense of family, of loyalty, of identity in a world that seemed determined to deny them all three. But with this sense of belonging came a price. Initiation rituals, often brutal and dehumanizing, bound members to the gang. Loyalty became paramount, and any transgression was met with swift and brutal retribution. What began as a way to survive morphed into something more sinister. The gangs, born out of necessity, soon became entangled in the very activities that plagued their communities: violence, drugs, and crime. The 1950s and 60s saw the rise of super gangs in Chicago, their influence, honestly, stretching across entire neighborhoods. Names like the Blackstone Rangers, Vice Lords, and Latin Kings became, just synonymous with power and fear. These gangs were more than just street thugs. They developed complex hierarchies, codes of conduct, and even social programs. They provided food for the hungry, mediated disputes, and offered a sense of community that, frankly, the city had failed to provide. But this veneer of social responsibility masked a darker truth. These gangs were deeply involved in the drug trade, extortion, and violence. They ruled their territories with an iron fist, terrorizing residents and silencing opposition. The super gangs of Chicago became symbols of a city struggling to cope with poverty, inequality, and racial tension. They were both a symptom of the city's ills and a contributor to its ongoing cycle of violence. The crack epidemic of the 1980s and 90s, it really threw gasoline on the already raging fire of gang violence in Chicago. Turf wars, fueled by the lucrative drug trade, turned whole neighborhoods into battlegrounds. Automatic gunfire, became a grim soundtrack to daily life. Innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire became tragic casualties. The city's murder rate soared, earning it the dubious distinction of murder capital of America. The gangs, once symbols of rebellion against a system that had failed them, became the very embodiment of that system's dysfunction. They were trapped in a self-perpetuating cycle of violence fueled by poverty, despair, and the allure of easy money. The crack epidemic left an indelible scar on Chicago, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of societal neglect and the human toll of the drug trade. Generations grew up under the shadow of gang violence. They witnessed firsthand the cycle of poverty, addiction, and violence that just seemed inescapable. Joining a gang for some felt like the only option, a path to survival in a world that offered little hope. Young men, often lacking positive role models and educational opportunities, were lured by the promise of camaraderie, respect, and a way to escape the bleakness of their surroundings. They became both perpetrators and victims, trapped in a cycle of violence they felt powerless to break. Mothers wept for their children, lost to gang violence or incarcerated. Communities, torn apart by fear and mistrust, struggled to break free from the grip of the gangs. The cycle, fueled by poverty, inequality, and despair, continued to claim lives and shatter dreams. Yet, even in the darkest of times, hope perseveres. Community activists, former gang members, and organizations dedicated to peace work tirelessly to break the cycle of violence plaguing Chicago's streets. They offer alternatives to gang life, providing educational opportunities, job training, and mentorship programs. They work to mediate conflicts, build trust between communities, and offer young people a vision of a future free from fear. Former gang members, haunted by their past, dedicate their lives to steering young people away from the path they once traveled. They share their stories, baring their souls to show that redemption is possible, that change is within reach. The fight for peace in Chicago is an uphill battle, but it is a battle worth fighting. With each life saved, with each young person who chooses a different path, a glimmer of hope emerges from the shadows. The legacy of gang violence in Chicago is a complex and painful one. The scars run deep, etched into the very fabric of the city and its people. But amidst the pain, there is hope. Hope for a brighter future. A future where violence is not the answer. The road ahead will be long and arduous. It'll require a collective effort from law enforcement, policymakers, community leaders, and residents to address the root causes of gang violence, poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunity. It will require investment in education, job creation, and social programs that provide young people with alternatives to gang life. It will require healing the wounds of the past and building bridges of understanding between communities torn apart by violence. The fight for peace in Chicago is not just about reducing crime. It's about restoring hope. It's about creating a city where every child, regardless of their zip code, has the opportunity to reach their full potential. It's about reclaiming the soul of a city and rewriting its narrative, replacing the echoes of gunfire with the sounds of laughter, hope, and progress.